Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to today's DV Live City Talk. I am Amanda Agam, the marketing coordinator for Desert Valleys, and today I'm joined by two special guests. Welcome, Dr. Dave Ostash.
Thank you. Hi, Amanda.
And hello again, Tim Smith.
Hello.
How are you?
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. It'd be a lot more enjoyable with donuts today, but
Always next time.
I know. There's never a bad time for donuts.
No.
So.
Especially when you're eating for two.
I know. Yes. Okay. So before we get too far into this conversation, if I am winded, I did not run today. I just have this small human that is pressing on too many organs. So, and it's only going to get worse.
Do you check the internet for how big it is and what size? Like this
do.
week, it's the size of a acorn or whatever.
I do. So I think this is the first episode where I'm going to say this, but it is a girl.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yay.
So this week, Olivia Ray is the size of an ear of corn. Yeah.
Interesting.
I know. I think what else?
Olivia Ray.
Olivia Ray.
R-A-E?
R-A-Y-E.
R-A-Y-E.
So
Okay.
my parents were weird, and that's my middle name, and they had to be a little bit different. So
I like it.
Our son has my husband's middle name, and so she'll have mine.
Congratulations.
Thank you. The other week, she was the size of a croissant, and I loved it.
I love that they're always food oriented.
Right?
Yeah.
I wonder if there's something else like out there, like if there's a guy's app that's like that, and it says like it's a wrench or hammer.
What size ball it is?
Yeah,
Golf
size of a
ball.
football.
It's football.
Gosh, so
Rugby ball.
ooh,
It's a bigger football.
Bigger.
Yeah.
is it bigger?
Oh, yeah.
Look at all these little fun facts we're sprinkling in. So let's just dive right
A baseball is smaller than a softball.
on. Yes.
Did you know that softballs used to be actually soft?
No.
I didn't
I
know that.
looked it up. I was like, why are they called softballs? Just like a couple weeks ago.
But I guess that would make sense.
Yeah, because why else would it be called a softball? It's not
Yeah.
soft. They're really hard.
They're definitely not. I was pelted by one and I was like, this is not fun. I don't want to play this ever again. But then I'm out there playing dodgeball.
Oh, gosh. There's a movie that involves wrenches being thrown.
If you can dodge a
pulling
wrench.
this all together.
You can dodge a ball.
Oh, geez. So before we get started, for anyone watching that might not know who you guys are, could you tell us who you are, what you do, and a fun fact about yourself? We'll let you start first. Dave.
Thanks, Amanda. All right, Dave Ostash. I am the superintendent for Sierra Sands Unified School District. I've been in the district for over 25 years, and I thought I'd be there for 10 months, but you know how that turns out in this valley. So this is home. And let's see, a fun fact. You know, a lot of people know me as an educator, obviously, somebody who goes into this schools or offices and wears shirts and ties and stuff, but I really like to work on cars. I'm not
Wrench.
a wrench.
Would be perfect.
I'm not an expert, but I try to do like as many repairs on cars as I can. I change the oil. I replace alternators and belts and whatever I can possibly do. And YouTube has really helped that a lot. But probably a lot of people don't know that I like to do that. So
do you want to like maybe one day restore a vehicle or do anything on that scale?
That could be like a developing interest. I can't say that I've had the interest, but as I've been developing more skill and experiences, I think maybe. Yeah, maybe.
I think it's doable. My husband and his dad started restoring a 55 Bel Air that is now passed on to just him and my son, who's 5. So all he does is go get the wrench or the socket and stuff.
That's so cool.
But like I'll dabble in it and I'm like, okay, this seems doable, but agreed, YouTube. There's
YouTube.
some channel called Dad, How Do I? And it's this dad who makes these videos for people who might not go ask the question or don't have the chance to ask their parents or something like that.
Yeah.
It is fantastic.
Oh, I love it.
He helped me fix a running toilet. So there we go.
Did you catch it?
I did not. I just let it run with my fridge. So, Tim.
Today I am just a citizen, but
Me too.
I also am the executive director at the Ridgecrest Chamber of Commerce and also a pastor at the table here in Ridgecrest.
You're spinning a lot of plates there.
My fun fact, I was talking with Nick earlier, is that I have never owned and never will own an iPhone.
Oh.
Ooh.
But then as Dave was talking, I was thinking, another fun fact is that Dave's way faster than me in the pool. And that's how we first met.
That's right. We need a pool. Is this podcast gonna be about a pool? No, it's not.
Oh man, here we are.
Desperately.
Adjudication. That's that word, right?
That would have been another fun fact about me is that yes, I really enjoy swimming, and that has been a huge loss with
During
in
COVID,
with
it's
in
really
shapes
sad. It's really
leaving
hard.
us. It
Yeah,
has
I
really
agree.
impacted some of us.
Yeah.
So and of course our swim teams in town.
And speaking on that vein, didn't they win the championship? And we don't have
it's a great irony that we not only
We have a lake. It's called China Lake. So they just go swim in the lake, right?
yeah, that's what they do.
that dry lake.
Oh, wait. Yeah.
Well, the Burroughs High School swim team is the winningest sports program at the school. It has the most.
Really?
It has the highest number of league championships and winning seasons, et cetera, of any athletic program in the school, and we don't have a pool. Of course,
That is wild.
Through most years, we had a community pool, penny pool, and so we obviously had a lease arrangement with the city. But the loss of penny pool several years ago now, and we're grateful. We're grateful for the China Lake and the command over there has been great about working through some bureaucratic tape, and we now have a lease arrangement, and our team is working out in the pool.
That's fantastic.
But it is, but we can't host any swim meets, obviously, because of the protocols for getting on base. So every single contest, every meet is out of town, and so we lost that. Yeah,
The dedication for the students and athletes doing that though is amazing.
it is.
Like back when I was in high school, and having to even just go out of town and do that, it's rough.
Yeah.
So to have to do that every time and then be the winningest sports program, like what?
My daughter is a junior at Burroughs, and she's on the swim team. Had not been a competitive swimmer at all until high school, and said, I'm going to join the swim team. It looks like a really fun thing to do. And so that's what she's doing. And we went to a meet. It was an invitational down in Lancaster on Saturday. And it was just amazing to watch us competing against 3 or 4 other high schools in the area. And we absolutely dominated every race. It was phenomenal. And we don't have our own pool like these teams do, and so who knows? That's a conversation that's kind of threaded in the community about what are the different options, what are the solutions down the road, and maybe one of these days we'll get to a solution.
I feel like every citizen here has some sort of want or need for that.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited that the splash pad just opened this week because my son's small enough to go out there and do that thing. But
Oh yeah, I just saw that when I was driving by, and I saw the water flowing. That's so cool. Yes.
yeah, he's like, "Can we have my birthday here?" And he's like, can Bumblebee be there?" And I was like, "I'll get right on that. Let me just call the Transformers real quick."
The Bumblebee.
You never know. Surprise appearance.
You guys like working? You guys got a costume somewhere?
No, but don't you guys have a whole bunch of costumes here at Desert Valleys?
I don't know what you're talking about. We are a professional organization.
Go look in some
with
closet.
No
You might
Legos.
have a lot of costumes.
I'll talk to Eric about that. So today we're going to be diving into a recap of the year. I mean, I think 21, 22, things got back to normal. And it sounds like the robotics team has stuff going on. Talk about what the next year holds, as well as a few facility needs and why Tim Smith is here.
I think robotics is a great place to start. We have we have a VEX robotics program at Burroughs High School, and we've experienced a lot of success over the years, but we've reached our highest success yet. Recently, one of our teams is actually going to be in the Worlds. They call it the Worlds competition in Texas. I actually have a couple little bullet points here because there's so many pieces to it that I can't remember them all, but they're going to be competing in the VEX Worlds competition next month.
That's
in Texas.
so exciting.
And I actually want to give a shout out to the Desert Valleys employee group, because you guys actually just recently made a donation of $2,500 to what's it called? Robotics for STEM. That's our nonprofit group in town that NDTI founded as a foundation. And I think something like roughly like $20,000 has been raised in the last month,
Wow.
I think, to go towards that. I know that there are other robotics programs in town. I know Emmanuel Christian has a group that has had some success as well. And so it's really neat that we have this foundation where the money, it seems to me like the way it's organized, the money kind of flows through this foundation and then it supports all of the Valley's robotics programs. But for Burroughs High School, we have this team that has been super successful, has gone through all the regional and state competitions and now qualifies for Worlds in Texas in May. So it's a 7-member team. The students are amazing.
Only 7?
Well, we have many students involved, but and we have different teams. But the top team, team of 7 dedicated members, they're the ones who actually have been competing and made it to this level.
So I know we have a photo opportunity coming up with that, and I believe they're bringing a robot with it.
Yes.
So it'll be after today when we're recording, but I'm really excited.
Dave, is that do they get a letter for that? Like for a Letterman jacket? Is it like a sport kind of a thing?
Well, no, there's no like Burroughs High School letter associated with that, but there are lots of awards that come with it. And I was even informed that the World Championships to have scouts and recruiters, from a lot of the top schools in the country. And so our students and our school will be getting a different look by being at the Worlds. And who knows what kinds of first of all, they'll get awards, right? Plaques, and they've already been getting plaques and
I'm
awards.
sure it opens a lot more doors of opportunity and scholarships. I'm assuming.
Exactly. So as these students are applying to schools and gaining entrance, or in some cases gaining entrance because of this activity, who knows what kind of scholarships they'll get. So this is it's just a really exciting time.
It's a nice way to build up your educational resume, per se.
Yeah. And they're having fun. I mean, you see some of the pictures coming out, or you talk to parents who are involved. They're just having a ball. So
I always think it's fun to watch how the different robots actually function.
Yeah.
One of our friend's sons built them, and he'll go feed the dog, and I'm like, I just need one of those in my life.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting to see all the work of it come together.
And it is very competitive, and you have to operate under pressure. So there's many pieces to it. So obviously you have to build the robot, you have to figure out ways of sustaining it, making it robust, making it durable. But then you also have to operate it under time constraint, and so you have to develop this sort of fluency it's a multi-pronged approach. You're not just building a robot and say, hey, this is what it can do. You're building.
Here, look at my bumblebee.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're developing this. There's certain parameters of what you can do, and then you can make these adjustments that make them maybe perform better than the other one. But again, you have to be able to drive these robots and perform the tasks, the specific tasks in a certain way. So you're really under a lot of pressure. It's kind of like, to me, I don't even really know how to juggle, but it's like juggling, but can you juggle at a certain speed in front of a crowd? And that's different than sitting on the
while
couch
turning around.
While turning around, while trying to practice the juggle. Right, you're doing this task that takes skill, but you got to do it under pressure in a certain time.
That's crazy. So, do you guys know if the Worlds will be recorded? Will we be able to see it? See at least the team portion of the competition? That's
a really good question. You know how things work in social media. There will be lots of videos that are taken and posted on our Facebook page, and parents will share it in social media. But I actually don't really know what the sort of system has over there. I'm not really sure, but I do know that teams come from literally around the world. The teams that qualify come from...
That's amazing.
I don't remember how many. There are dozens and dozens of countries who have teams who are coming.
Well, and I think it's just great to show something like that for the younger generations going up into the high school and the ability of what it can do.
Yeah.
So...
And it goes without saying, but I should say it, that it's kind of a whole family that does this. We have... folks on the base at China Lake and with partners like NDTI and other. there are resources that are shared from industry and from China Lake that really helps, provide support, provide both academic and engineering support. And, without that support that we get from our engineers and scientists and our local leaders, we wouldn't be as successful as we are. It's not just us, but I also want to thank Mr. Jacketon. A lot of them call Mr. J. He's our teacher who is the club advisor for extra robotics at BHS.
That's awesome. So what about next year? I know that there's a little bit of a math expansion possibly happening.
Yes. So we have AP Computer Science is actually one of the new classes being, and it's when you say computer science, you think, well, that's not a math. It's actually in our field. It's kind of a math class.
Okay.
It's a math credential that's required, but we are looking at reimagining some of our pathways. There's kind of a larger movement for that with the state math framework. Mm-hmm. But looking at research, we are adding some math courses, and we also have been utilizing UCLA has a support arm. Okay. So we have some professional development sessions that we've had historically and going into the future from UCLA that will help us improve our math program.
But I think that's just great that it's growing and expanding and that we have these opportunities available to youth. And especially, I remember when I moved back and I saw that the high school had an engineering department. And I was like, this is fantastic to build this up now here and be able to keep this intelligent minds and these young minds locally within our community. So
that's a huge goal, to grow your own. You want to. So for us internally, we'd love to grow our own teachers. Because think about it, we don't have a university in town. We really don't have easy recruitment, and so really our best recruitment is to develop people from within our organization who show an interest in, say, teaching, right, and bring them back after they go away and get. But same thing with our biggest employer in town. I'm always hearing it's about 86% of our economy. Basically, our economy is China Lake, right?
Right.
Well, we want to grow our own engineers and scientists and support personnel and technicians. And
it makes sense to retain them here and instead of trying to vet someone else to up and come here.
Exactly.
So, I mean, this town always seems to draw people back, though.
It does. It does.
I do. I love it here, though. Now I'm like, okay, this is where I need to be. I like my little tumbleweeds. It's perfect. Not so fond of the wind, but who is?
We got a pretty big dose of that a couple
that
days
one this
ago.
week was pretty rough. I also say the goat heads. I could do without the goat heads.
I could do without goat heads, yeah.
Chickens are really good with that. My chickens, I let them out, and they go and eat them, and my son runs around barefoot in the backyard, and yeah.
Oh, my gosh. I didn't know that. Fun fact.
Yeah.
We all need chickens.
We do.
I am such an advocate for the chickens. My husband, not so much.
Okay, so they pick up the goat heads, but then if you're running on barefoot, might you step on other stuff that maybe the chickens leave behind?
Oh, I'm sure I step on Legos and Hot Wheels all the time.
Okay, all right.
But there's also
mushy stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, that mushy stuff, my son goes and picks up. He's now at the age where I'm like, hey, you got this little chore. You go pick that up.
I love it.
I know. He's wild. He's a feral child most days. So another thing was recently you went up to Sacramento, I believe, for
Sacramento.
Was it
Did I
federal
go to
impact?
Oh no! I went to actually to DC.
Oh, okay.
So I went to So we receive Impact Aid, which is a federal program that is designed to help school districts that reside on or serve students who are either on federally impacted land through basically three either Native American or Indian lands, like just federal lands, or military impact. So of those three, we qualify for two. There's a lot of federal land obviously around us, and we do have, while we don't have a significant amount of military connected, we have a lot of civilian defense connected, and they count as well too. So, our school budget receives around between $1 and $2 million, but it's usually an average of about $1.5 million a year. We get to help offset, because school districts in California especially are funded obviously through taxes. And in our town, the major employers are not taxed. China Lake is not taxed.
Really?
Sierra Sands is not taxed. Sorocoso is not taxed. And so the hospital is not taxed. It's a nonprofit. So the major employers, I think the highest tax revenue, I don't want to misspeak, but I think Walmart is among the top like corporate tax revenue sources. So like in Bakersfield, historically, you had a ton of tax revenue coming in from oil, ag, but in Ridgecrest, as a locality, there's just a very minimal
a
tax
couple
base.
Weeks ago, Supervisor Peters was on the show, as well as John Paul Lake from Kern Venture Group and B3K, and we talked about oil and ag and taxes with that too.
Yeah.
So, or I guess lack of currently.
Yeah. So like if China Lake, instead of being a federal base, if let's say it was a giant employer that was not a public entity, then whatever it was doing would probably generate a lot of like corporate tax revenue.
Like if it was just a Boeing.
Yeah. If it was a giant Boeing.
Airport Boeing stuff.
Yeah.
It would be a different story.
Yeah. So that's why it's called federal impact aid. The legislation, I mean, the impact aid has been around since the 50s. Okay. Since the 1950s. So it's like a 70-ish year old program. And we aren't really, so one of the reasons, so why was I in DC? Those school districts who are part of a consortium of advocacy go back to, help, because sometimes there's threat about either eliminating or reducing those line items in the federal budget. Okay. So there's basically, we belong to NAFIS, National Association of Federally Impacted Schools, which is essentially like a PAC, right? A political action committee. And we're there to help preserve and protect this funding and to promote full funding, because even though it is funded, it's not funded fully the way it used to be. It hasn't been fully funded since the 60s.
Oh, wow.
The program started, it was fully funded, and then starting in the 60s, there were some alterations and some political maneuvering and such. And since then, it's never been fully funded.
But it helps offset.
It does. The funding is helpful, and it helps our district try and remain competitive with all the other school districts, and to provide equitable services to our students, and to basically support an educational system that is first class. And it obviously takes revenue sources to build your budget to. So
does that help with facilities and infrastructure?
Everything. The nice thing about the nice thing about impact aid is that when it's allocated to a school district, it's a recognition that there's a shortfall in your general fund, and so this is general fund money. So you can use it however you see fit. So for us, it's fully integrated into our general fund. So we use it for salaries and benefits and books and facilities, and we use it for we just use it for whatever we need to serve our students best.
That's awesome. I mean, especially with like Murray.
Yeah,
which is our newest school.
That's our newest school, but not for long, because we'll be building new Richmond school soon. So, but Murray's currently our newest school.
That's one thing I would like to touch on. I know I'm sorry I didn't prep this question.
That's okay.
How is Richmond coming along?
Richmond is very far along in the planning and grant earning phase. So we would probably already have a plan for breaking ground by the end of this calendar year.
Oh, wow.
Except we all know we've been hearing about inflation.
Supplies.
All that stuff, supply chain. So there has been a disproportionately insane cost escalation for construction costs. The base is experiencing it right now with all of their earthquake recovery. Well, what it did was it impacted the budget that we had submitted to the Department of Defense for this 80% grant. And so the good news is that the inflation is real, and those cost impacts are real, and they're experiencing it themselves with their own. So what we had to do, it's a process. Federal government grants are very process oriented. We have to submit a justification addendum to our grant that substantiates the cost escalation in our budget.
So it's not dead in the water. It's just
no,
gotta tack.
Okay. No, it's it's a green light project. We're moving forward. It's just that we need to submit this addendum in order for them to approve the budget modification of increasing the budget.
Does that increase your 20%? Also has to go up. So if it was only $20, now you're going to have to pay $22 or $23, even though they'll pay more.
No, it doesn't.
You also have to pay more.
It doesn't increase our 20%, but our 20% will be more money.
That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
And one clarification question that I did actually get beforehand on the show, if this topic got brought up. Where will Richmond be? Will it be on base or off base?
It'll be both. It'll be both.
I know.
So it'll be on base property because that's a requirement for the grant, but it will not be inside
inside the gate.
Inside the gate. So the land that it will go on is the land out the south gate. So if you know if you go down Ridgecrest Boulevard Road. And Richmond, so it'll be
there's that little park and ride, and then
exactly.
Back gate.
So just west of the park and ride is a big parcel of land. Mm-hmm. That is where the school will be.
Okay, because I was like, I feel like I know the answer to this question, but we're just gonna get it straight.
And if anyone out there listening might say, okay, why? Because we have Pierce Elementary School that's regionally very close.
It's right across the street of theoretically that parcel.
And, we went through many different options. We collaborated very closely with the base who, they have they're a strong partner in this grant proposal. And at the end of the day, it was really the best all around solution for a number of reasons, but it is not the most optimal solution for the district when you look at just the location of schools, period.
So will that result in rezoning?
It could. Great question.
Redrawing the boundaries.
Yes.
It could.
So I know this because I just enrolled my student into school, and I had to go look at the zoning and all this stuff. It was very difficult.
It could. And the thing is that that's a hard thing to do for any community because looking at that can cause some consternation, for homeowners and such. But the good thing is that we're probably in that time, since it hasn't been done in many, many years, probably 25 years have passed at least since we've even looked at it. So it's good to at least look at it. And then also because the district is. And of course, I cannot promote this, but I can talk factually about it. But because our Board of Education passed a resolution last month that has put a general obligation bond on the ballot for June 7, it's called Measure C. That because of what that would do,
I feel very Vanna White doing that.
And what that would do is if the voters approve that is it would basically repurpose the Monroe School. And we would no longer use that as an instructional space. We would add a classroom wing to the new Murray School, thereby allowing us to put all of the Valley's 7th and 8th graders there. And then we would add a gymnasium and modernize the Viewig campus and put all of the Valley's 6th graders there.
And the Viewig campus is where Richmond
is currently being housed temporarily because the Richmond School was essentially destroyed in the earthquake. So the reason why I bring that up is because if you really look at the kind of showing my transparency side here, if you really look at probably the most prominent issue that would cause some political heartache about rezoning would probably come to that sort of Murray and Monroe thing.
Yeah.
So if Measure C is passed, which would then create basically a new, it would reprogram how we service students, there would be just one junior high school. All of the Valley's juniors high school students, 7th and 8th, would go to Murray, and all the 6th graders would go to Viewig. So when you rezone, it doesn't matter where you live, all of your 6th through 12th graders would go to the same schools, right? And all of your 6th graders Viewig, all your 7th and 8th graders Murray, all of your high schools. And so then rezoning only really impacts our 6 elementary schools. Yeah.
So speaking of, now that we've talked a little bit briefly about Measure C, can we talk about like the history, why it's a bond, and how citizens can support it? Does it have to be?
Why don't I drop in a little bit on history, and then Tim can talk about like citizens and support.
Perfect.
Because I'm really not permitted to talk about that part. But the history of it is that every school district goes through a periodic review of its facilities. Okay. In fact, we have a very significant a binder called our Facilities Master Plan, and we've hired some consultants to help us. And over the last, I'd say last 20 years, we have probably 3 iterative master plans, because back in 2006, when we passed Measure A was a $50 million bond. We only ever accessed 25 million of it because the Great Recession hit, and we were able to address some of our facilities issues. But fast forward to today, the history of it is that we now are looking at what are our most pressing facilities needs. And in the facilities condition,
because there's some pretty old facilities out there.
There are.
My Mimi's age old.
Yes, but every school is either has been fully modernized, with the exception of one school, Monroe Middle School. Monroe Middle School is one of our oldest schools, not the oldest. Inyo-Kern Elementary is the oldest.
Really?
But from the 20s. But it has been significantly modernized.
I was a unicorn.
Oh, is that right?
I was a unicorn.
Well, Inyo-Kern was significantly modernized with Measure A money, so it's in really good shape. Monroe Middle School, which was built in the early 1950s, I always think of like 1950 as kind of the number. I think it's early 1950s. Okay. But really, very little has been done to it. Very little money has been available for it. So that is really the facility that it is the number one need in the district for solving. And so that's what ushered in the plan associated with Measure C. So, I'll turn it over to Tim to talk a little bit about Measure C.
Real quick, with the looking at all of them, was that brought more to forefront with the earthquakes and everything as well?
The earthquake had an impact on things, but it really didn't. It had an impact on things in that Richmond Elementary School became a condemned school.
Non-usable, non-habitable.
And that really helped to inform what kind of grant application we would write to the Department of Defense about what we would do with Richmond. Because the grant application allows you to either modernize or build a new school. Well, the earthquake really helped inform what our grant application should be, and therefore what the Department of Defense approved, which was the new build of Richmond. So yes, the earthquake really impacted things on our facilities. But the plan for Measure C, the earthquakes had very little impact on that because Monroe Middle School just simply was a facility that had been identified as having a very serious need.
But I believe prior to the earthquakes, the district already had brought on the consultants to evaluate the entire scope of projects. Okay. So they were already in the works for that. And coming out of that, Dave, you might be able to correct me, but coming out of that assessment, they showed that the district has $160 million in need. Oh, wow. So there's a lot beyond just this repurpose, enhance, and whatever term we use for.
And it goes beyond just like, let's slap a coat of paint on this. It's
drastically more. So Measure C, one of the reasons I talked with Dave and I was happy to come and support is because the school district, I'll say for whatever reasons, the state of California restricts the way that the school district can advocate for themselves once they've put a bond, the paperwork into the county and into the state to be on the ballot. So moving forward, then it needs to be the citizens who come alongside and advocate for our school district and for our students. So for our community, we have to be the loudest voice.
And so it's citizens within the Sierra Sands district.
Yeah, and that actually spans not just Ridgecrest, right? So it goes into, I believe, even San Bernardino County.
Yeah, there are some students who are served who live in San Bernardino County. Yeah.
That come over from, like, say, Trona and come into school here?
It's actually more
not in Trona.
Johannesburg, right?
Yeah,
and Randsburg.
Johannesburg, Randsburg,
And obviously Inyo-Kern.
Inyo-Kern is still, that's still Kern County.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you look at the kind of the southwest, I guess, right, southwest corner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So back in January and February, the school district pulled together a committee, and it was called Building Schools for Tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And they invited basically, I believe it went, a parent square went to every parent inviting them to participate. And it went to the community. It was in the newspapers, inviting people to come and hear about what the school needs are, the district needs are, and what path kind of to move forward. So out of that, after 4 weeks of hearing about it and discussing it and reviewing it, the committee, unanimously or came to a consensus and presented a plan to the school board. And then eventually the next week or two, they adopted it and are moving forward with the bond. So the bond will provide I think it's $51.4 million access. Doesn't mean they get that right away. They'll have access to that to do some of these things, the modernization of viewing and the upgrades, and also doing, the addition there at Murray and the repurposing of Monroe. So that's the drive. And so coming out of that 4-week session or committee, several of the committee members wanted to continue to advocate and support the school district to see us put our best foot forward for the future and for our students particularly, right? So that's where Citizens for Measure C came along. Kind of once the district put the paperwork in to have a bond, then we had to wait to hear what the bond letter was going to be, and it's called Measure C.
Okay.
So that's why it's called Citizens for Measure C. So,
and can that be? Does it just have to be parents with a student enrolled? Can it be?
No, that's for everybody who is in the footprint of Sierra Sands.
They can support
whatever. So like we just talked about, across those boundaries of county, it's anybody who's in the boundaries of Sierra Sands will be able to vote at the June 7 election to say yes or no for Measure C.
And anyone can come and be part of Citizens for Measure C.
Absolutely. And Citizens for Measure C, we currently are meeting once a week at John's Pizza at 5:30.
6.
6. What time is it?
6 on Mondays.
Yeah, 6 on Mondays.
I mean, I'll be there at 5:30 for some breadsticks.
Yeah, right. That's part of the nice thing about meeting there, right? So there's some food. And then just next week on Wednesday, there's an informational kind of mixer gathering to hear some, to get a better understanding and have some presentations and some dialogue around it. And that's going to be held at the Matarango Museum on Wednesday, April 20. And that starts at 5:30.
Better to be early than late.
It starts at 5:30. Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, especially because I hadn't heard about it before because I don't have Parent Square yet. But to be able to support that, because if you don't advocate for our students, let's be honest, who will?
Yeah.
So to be able to have this, and
one of the important things when we hear it essentially will be, are we willing as citizens to put a small tax on ourselves so that we can support our school district? And I say a small tax.
And that's where I was leading into, because
it'll impact the property owners. So the property owners, if you will receive an additional tax, and essentially it comes out to be $60 per $100,000 of assessed value.
Okay.
So if you have a $200,000 home that's assessed at that price, you will then pay $120 tax every year so that the school district can move forward with its plan. Now, let me back up again, right? Because I said the district has $160 million in need. Mm-hmm. This bond only covers 51.4. 51.4 million. So that's not even a third of the actual need that the district has. Now let's back up again to the conversation that Ostash had about how most school districts are funded, and it's by the major employers. So our major employers, because of how they're structured, being government or nonprofit, they don't have to put into the cup in the same way. So our cup as a district is smaller. So it's being placed upon us to make a decision to say, we're going to support this and to try to raise that cup up to be to help them hit their budget and their plans for what are going to be best for our whole community.
I mean, speaking personally, that's a nominal tax for the longevity and honestly, the quality of life for our students.
Yeah.
So
That's a hope that the citizens for Measure C are trying to communicate, and the need is there, and we have an opportunity. If we value our community, if we want to do this, we need to be willing to step forward and
I mean, how many times have we all
yeah.
heard that there's nothing to do for our students here or our kids here in town, let alone now it's like, okay, let's give them the best education and facilities that we can as well.
Yeah.
So,
And part of the plan, Dave didn't talk about this, but what I think is exciting is when we talk about repurposing Monroe and moving all of the students, the 7th and 8th grade students to one location and the 6th graders at one location, that the 7th and 8th graders particularly will have a greater access to a broader range of electives and classwork. So it's harder to have more depth in class when you have two different campuses. But when you pull all the students in one location and you have larger staff at one location, you can have a more specialized opportunities that are presented.
okay.
So I think it's really exciting for what the potential is when we do vote this through. And that's my hope, right?
And that is June 7th, correct?
June 7, 2022. Yeah, crazy. It's only like 6 weeks out, right? Like,
Yeah, and the one thing that it is permitted for us is to do like a voter registration drive. So we're working on that.
Okay.
And frankly, a lot of people don't vote on June 7. They vote in May because they have the
mail-in.
mail home. So when you back that up, we're just a few weeks away.
Right. And if I'll put this plug in, you can go on to let me back up. It's not Citizens. It's buildingschoolsfortomorrow.org. We've created a website to
And I'll link to that in the show post as well.
Awesome. So to kind of connect and support for this and maybe even moving forward. But on there, with what Dave just said, there's a link to register to vote. It'll pop you back over to the state website. So trying to make it as easy as possible. There's ways that you can give to support this. We have trifolds to be able to get the word out, and we have ordered like yard signs just to try to encourage people to vote yes on C to really support our students. So
where can citizens get those items?
right now, at our meetings on Monday, the trifolds just showed up yesterday, and the yard signs are supposed to arrive on Friday. So right now they're all being made. So can't pick them up on Monday, hopefully at John's
With
Pizza.
your breadsticks.
With your breadsticks.
Yes,
Your ranch
at
and
6.
nacho.
You know, one thing I can promote, if you don't mind, just a little segue here is, our drama department. You asked about earthquakes.
Oh.
One of our biggest losses
My niece,
was
yes.
the Parker Performing Arts Center.
The PAC, yeah.
The PAC. We call it the PAC. The auditorium, had some damage. It wasn't really structural damage, but it was.
Was that Mrs. Kratz?
Miss Kratz has been in there for quite some time now.
Okay.
It's Miss Poole, Miss Eileen
Okay.
Poole. And in fact, we had our first. So what I want to highlight is that the PAC is open and
Is it?
and thriving, and we now have our second theater performance, "The Importance of Being Earnest," and this coming weekend is the last weekend series of the production. So I'm
Okay.
promoting that.
That's awesome.
The Importance of Being Earnest is on Friday and Saturday. This Friday and Saturday.
So
at
we
7
are
p.m.
pre-recording this. This episode will air on Wednesday the 20th. So make sure everyone watching, you're going to see me promote this before this episode comes out.
Okay.
So I'll get info from you.
And and that's still good because I just want to compliment the borough's thespians. That they're doing a great job. They did the 12 Angry Jurors production in the fall, which I attended, and they just did great. We had an awesome audience, and our students you could just kind of tell that they were kind of coming back in after having been dark for a couple of years, with the pandemic and the earthquakes and also, gosh, or had it been 3 years? I'm trying to think.
Was it?
was
So
before
19.
So it had been quite some time, but the nerves kind of went away. The students settled in, and they did an awesome job. I'm hoping to see the Importance of Being Earnest production this weekend, and I'm just really proud of the students, and I'm grateful to Miss Poole for all of the hard work and dedication. Because just like sports and music, the drama productions, they take a lot of time. They take a lot of time, a lot of commitment, and these students work Really hard.
So my niece, she's still going to school for a theater, and just the costumes, set production, like getting everything ready and all that. And I was like, whoa.
All the rehearsals.
It is crazy. Yeah. So, and then to go home, rehearse your lines or memorize your lines. I was like,
it's a lot of stress.
Yeah, it's a lot.
But the outcome is just beautiful. You see these productions and you see these students, the fulfillment, that they have, and
their energy just exudes out.
Absolutely.
So even through the characters and everything alike. So that's amazing. Like you said, the availability and the expansion of everything that is open to these children that we need to support, like that right there. Just the PACT being back. Like it's back. Something. Yeah. How long has it been there? I mean,
oh gosh, the PAC Center, I believe, was built in the 1970s.
So it's a staple.
Which is interesting because a little bit of history. Burroughs High School started on the base, of course, with the campus that we called until it's no longer the old Murray campus was really the old high school.
Old Burroughs.
And the oversight or the governing agency was the Kern High School District. Well, it was the Kern Union High School District at the time in Bakersfield, right?
Okay.
So from like 1940, let's say 1943, all the way until the 1970s, until the Sierra Sands became a unified school district. We unified, I believe, 4 different districts together. See if I can remember them all. So Kern High School District was Burroughs. The Indian Wells Valley School District was Monroe and Las Flores and schools like that. You had the Rand School District, which was the school in Rand. And then you had the China Lake School District, which was Murray, Groves, Buig, Pierce, all these schools that were on baseline. So you had 4 school districts, right? You had 4 different boards, 4 different governing agencies, 4 different entities.
Wow.
If I stated those right, you could talk to Bruce Ald and fact check me. And then all 4 of those districts came together to form the new Sierra Sands Unified School District.
And that was in the 70s.
It was like 1973, 1974, something like that. And so, so why do I say that? So remember, Burroughs High School was originally on the base. It wasn't until the 1950s that the current Burroughs High School was built.
Okay.
And it wasn't until the 70s that the Performing Arts Center was built, or maybe late 60s. I want to be careful. It was either late 60s, early 70s, because it was the Kern High School District who still owned that school and operated that school.
Okay.
The Kern High School District is what built that school in the 50s, 51, 52. And then they added later on, there was the original campus, and then later they added facilities, like they added what we call N-Wing, which is that octagonal building.
Oh, yes,
That building and the Performing Arts Center are both sort of from the same kind of vintage. They were both built around the same time in the 60s or so, late 60s, early 70s.
I would say 60s, considering it's a octagon.
There you go.
Building.
The Performing Arts Center was not an original part of the feature of the.
Well, I'm glad it's here and back again.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to go back in there and see all the kids performing.
Oh, so fun. Yeah.
I know. I always love, like, my husband, he's like, okay, it's football. We got to go on Fridays, this and that and everything. And then when my niece was doing plays and stuff, I was like, okay, we get to go to plays now on Saturday. And he's like, what?
Well, I can remember when I was principal at Burroughs High School years ago, I can remember some Friday nights where we would have football, have the marching band on the field, cheerleaders, lots of clubs out there, and we would have a theater performance in the Performing Arts Center. So I would, from a supervision point of view, I'd kind of walk around and check in on all kinds of different groups. I'd go sit in the Performing Arts Center and watch some of the performance, walk down to football, make sure everybody's doing all right. So
it's so great to see how far our town has come with all the eclectic little groups that everyone can be a part of.
Yes.
And back to swimming, how it's the most winning team, and we're this little desert town.
Trying to find our own pool.
Yeah. So that's a real underdog story.
Totally. Yeah.
So
I have a question for Dave. Can I ask it? So going back to the new Richmond, 20% you guys the school district has to provide, but 80% is provided by the base. But what's the order of payment? Do you have to pay for all of it up front and then get reimbursed for the 80%? Or do they cover everything and you just over time paid 20%?
That's a good question, and I believe I know the answer to it.
Sorry,
if Ernie were here, or Jody Rummer oversaw a lot of it, and then Ernie Bell did. But I believe the way it works is there's sort of like batch payments. So we have enough money in our facilities fund. We have a capital facilities fund where some of the Office of Public School Construction monies that come back to us in the form of rebates and in many cases, some of your more significant grant monies you get from the state are reimbursements from previous projects. So interesting facts, like Burroughs High School was a modernization project with DOD and Murray was a new build project with DOD. But some of those expenditures qualify down the road for certain hardship monies or certain state prop monies. And so you get some reimbursements. Anyway, that's what populates our facilities capital fund. So we have to front the payment on just about everything. But as there is incremental or phased completion, the DoD grant is willing to send partial payments.
Interesting.
So it actually is really interesting, and there's a lot of cash watching because we don't have enough cash to pay for this full project. So it's always a careful eye to watch.
What are we talking? $80 million to build
Plus.
a new elementary school without the inflation?
With the inflation, no, we were hoping it would be less than 80. With the inflation, it pushed us all the way up into the 80s.
Okay,
it's
crazy, right?
For any veteran educator who's maybe been involved with building a school or modernizing a school, who's maybe retired now and said, oh yeah, I did a project 10 years ago or 20 years ago. If they were to hear that number, they would literally fall over in their chair and go, are you kidding me? 82, 84, 85 million for an elementary school? Now granted, Richmond School has some specific design features with the, we call it the annex at the old Richmond. I don't know if we're going to call it the annex at the new Richmond, but there are some special facilities to help support. Richmond is where we have, basically our, like, if you want to call it a magnet, but it's where we have some of our specialized services for our younger children who have moderate to severe special needs.
Okay, so children with IEPs or... Yeah,
all of our schools serve students with IEPs, but if you have a more severe need, you're going to more likely go to Richmond School until you get moved into either a middle or a high school where we have some programs as well. But Richmond has... more like dedicated services. So there are some special facilities that we have for physical therapy and occupational therapy and some other programmatic
And I'm
needs.
sure that takes different accreditations for maybe teachers or...
In some cases, yes.
Backgrounds.
Absolutely, yes. So it punches up the price a little bit because we have some common spaces that are larger and special, but nevertheless, even a special elementary school should not, historically would never be in the 80s of millions. Yeah. So,
wow.
Well, and one of the interesting things about Measure C is that if it passes, it will help give access to the school district for accessing other grants, because then they'll be able to leverage the money through the bond to get other projects that they're unable to access right now. So.
Oh, that's fantastic to actually throw in there.
Another little tidbit that I've learned over the last, 3 months, like there's a lot of layers to how we need to support the school district and what then they're able to do.
Yeah, that's a great point, Tim. The way that the Office of Public School Construction, which is the big California agency that manages all of the school construction monies that the state of California gets, which is they do the state Prop 51, or I can't remember all the different numbers, but the voters approve that. Much of the monies that are available are exactly what Tim says. They're in many cases reimbursement from self-help projects, meaning whether it's a general obligation bond or a parcel tax or a Mello-Roos fee or whatever the case is. School districts invest monies. And then there are all these different grants that are available for reimbursement, whether it's 50% reimbursement, 30%, 70%, there's different ones. But
I mean, it all helps.
the school districts around the state that identify ways to generate sort of that multiple spokes in the wheel of money, those districts are the ones that kind of get that flywheel effect, that economic flywheel of all the different monies that are available, from the state, from the Fed, et cetera.
Okay.
So one more piece that I want to highlight about Measure C, if I can.
Go for it.
Is that years ago, 2006, the school passed, or the community passed Measure A. And so Dave already referenced it earlier, that we've only accessed 25 million of the 50 million that was originally in their scope.
Allotted.
But with the passing of Measure C, if it passes, the district board has already agreed to retire, I think that's the appropriate word, retire Measure A, saying that they will no longer be drawing on that. So when we talk about an additional tax, some might say, oh yeah, but we did that. Why don't we have this? Well, that was limited in what its scope is and where the district is now, 15 years, 16 years later, things are a little different. And the money that was allocated for specific projects, it can't just be broadly used for other projects now. So that's the benefit of passing Measure C. It will move us forward.
It will modernize the needs and what it's used for.
It really will. And it'll also retire that one. So we will no longer be paying that at some point. Like there's a process to all of that, but it's something that we've talked a little bit about. And so I think it's kind of an important piece. So just wanted to bring that up.
Awesome.
Is that good?
Before we end today, there is a Board of Education meeting or a public hearing next week as well. Or I guess tomorrow, once this airs, it's going to be tomorrow, the 21st?
No, the meeting is next week.
Okay.
You have to remind me which, I didn't bring my board agenda with me. Is that for some textbook adoptions or?
SELPA?
Oh, for SELPA?
Mm-hmm. Budgeting?
Oh, okay. It may be related to the annual budget that we put together for SELPA. So the SELPA is our special education department. And one of the ordinary annual pieces of that is putting public light or a hearing for anyone who might have comment on the SELPA budget.
And so that'll be Thursday, the 21st.
Thursday at 7 p.m. Next Thursday, the 21st. Is that the 21st?
Yep.
7 p.m. at the City Council chambers.
Okay. So I just wanted to make sure to highlight that since I was looking through, making sure I knew what we were going to talk about today. And I was like, public hearing. So, well, thank you guys so much for being here today.
Thanks, Amanda.
I feel like we covered so much. Yeah. Any closing comments?
No, I actually think we covered a lot, which you never know going in but
what's going to happen.
Covered a lot. You did a great job, and I think the only closing comment I would have, I've already mentioned, which is just how proud of the students I am, and just how exciting it is moving forward to see how they're performing.
I know. I'm excited to finally be a parent at Sierra Sands. I'm scared. I'm nervous. It's weird. My kid's growing up. Scary. So thank you for being here today. And I will make sure to link to buildingschoolsfortomorrow.org as well, so people can click on that, register to vote, get them on board with Measure C as well. So thank you everyone for watching today. Be sure to head over to the City of Ridgecrest page and see the City Council meeting tonight, starting at 6 p.m. And then make sure if you have interest in the public hearing, get over there on the 21st at 7 p.m. as well. So thanks everyone. Bye.